me tonight to learn more about best practices in social media and personal branding. Just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I work in marketing and public relations at Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. I've always had this interest in writing and content ever since I was a little girl. So I always picked up a pen as soon as I was able to hold one as a child and just started scribbling all over the place and kind of learned how to turn that into a career. So I'm really excited tonight to be on here with you. I really got this interest in social media and personal branding back in the mid-2000s, to date myself a little bit, when all of this first came online. I was fascinated with the way brands were portraying themselves online and then how people were portraying themselves online. And then I took a new career pathway into the education sector, where we had this department with about 1,000 student employees who we were monitoring online as part of our social media strategy, and just seeing the things they were saying and doing, and just watching the things that my personal student interns were saying and doing online, and how that affected, you know, their careers and interviews and all of that good stuff, and how could we help to make sure that they were ready and best prepared when they entered the real world from college, so online and offline, with their personal brand. So it's always been an interest of mine, and I'm really excited tonight to share a couple of those tidbits with you. We will take questions throughout tonight, so please feel free to ask those, and we have a lot of good content here, I hope. So we're about to get started, and again, thank you for being on here. So first, we're going to cover a lot of things tonight, but when it comes down to it, 3 big buckets: discovering why personal branding matters. We're going to talk about how to protect yourself online, more so on Facebook. That seems to be the one that gets most people into trouble. And then we're going to talk about how to brand yourself across social media platforms. So what is personal branding? Why are we even here tonight? Why do we even care? So if I tell you Amazon and Target, Starbucks, there's probably that warm feeling in your heart, the way you feel every time you step into a Target store or you're holding a Starbucks drink in your hand. Well, guess what? Your personal brand is kind of like the same thing as a Target, an Amazon, or a Starbucks. So it's this combination of what you do and say combined with how people feel about you. That really makes up your personal brand. So if I were to say to you Oprah or Madonna, those people also give you that certain feeling of what you do and what you say, how you feel about them, and it all creates that personal brand for you. I really love this quote about personal branding. I think this kind of sums up everything that you need to know about personal branding. Every thought you produce, anything you say, any action you do, it bears your signature. So again, anything you do online and offline, that is going to be part of your personal brand. So it's really thinking about how you can integrate that online and offline. So a lot of you asked some really great questions in preparation for this webinar, and I'm hoping to cover some of them as we talk tonight. A lot of you asked, like, well, how does this personal brand affect business? So there's been a lot of studies out there, and they say that only 33% of buyers trust messages from a brand, while 90% trust messages from someone that they know. So you really want to make sure you are representing yourself accordingly. And this is just a really great list of how your personal brand can affect your career, your leadership pathway, and ultimately, you know, the business or company that you represent. So clients, number one, clients will come to someone that they trust and have that authentic relationship with. Kind of going along with that, rewarding partnerships. Leadership opportunities. If you have a solid brand online and offline, people will think of you for those leadership opportunities. Greater mind share. So let's say that you brand yourself as a social media guru or expert, which we're going to talk about that language in a second. People will start to associate, if they need to come to someone about that kind of topic, oh, you'll be the first name that comes to mind, and that they can use your services with that. And you could see all of the other ones down here too, going along with credibility, recognition, and prestige, and just really a higher perceived value when you talk the talk online that you are showing in real life as well. So, when we're thinking about how to start our personal brand journey, here are some questions that you can ask yourself. So, why do you do what you do? So, why do you have the job that you have? And then, how would you describe what you do? So, you're 9 to 5 every day. How would you talk about that to someone? And then, what words describe you? I think this one's a really hard one to think about because it's kind of hard to think about ourselves in that language, those, bold words to describe ourselves. But then you can use friends and coworkers to help describe you and your personality. What are your values? And again, making sure that those values are being shown online and offline. And then what makes you unique? So these are just important things to think about. These will kind of give you the framework for all of your social media channels and everything that you need to do, brand yourself online and offline. So I think the number one question maybe to ask yourself when you start this journey is what makes you get out of bed in the morning? And
okay. I just want to make sure it's not downstairs to make a break in. Okay, I haven't either.
So what makes you get out of bed in the morning? So is there a story behind that can really set the tone for your personal brand? Is there something that you can share about how you got your career path? What energizes you? What makes you excited? So as far as some personal branding tips, when we're thinking about how we're going to write about ourselves online or describe ourselves online and offline, this is just a really good list from Time Magazine that I liked about phrases to avoid. And so I used the G word earlier of guru, mogul, maven, and expert. Use those words sparingly because you always want to think that there might be someone out there who knows something more than you do about a topic. This kind of goes along with later in that list, the best, the one, and the only. We have, I had to have this talk with a couple of students as they were getting ready to graduate. Some of the things on their resume were like the best graphic designer in town, and we had to kind of sit down and say, well, are you better than this person? Are you better than that? So you just want to watch, that balance between showcasing your skills and representing them in the best light possible. I really love this term zombie branding. That is that really corporate speak that you use from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day, like bottom line, results driven, and all of those acronyms that you probably are ingrained in your brain at work. You really want to talk in your brand in that way because no one else may know what you're talking about. Trophies as well. You just don't want to be distinguished by the trophies you have, so your education or awards you won. And if there are awards that you've won, that is great to include, but you don't want that to be the only thing that shapes your brand. My tasks and skills. Again, really good things to showcase, but you don't want it to be the only thing. And I think piggybacking off of what we said earlier, taking a look at how you use the words like disruptor, a catalyst, or a change agent. Again, just making sure you're not overhyping your brand. So part of my personal brand is that I am a huge theater nerd, which comes across in all of my social channels. And so as I was thinking about personal branding as of 2017, I just kept thinking of this quote from the musical Hamilton: who lives, who dies, who tells your story? And your personal brand is all about your story. So who tells that story? That's you. So you want to have that story ready to roll. You want to have it so it's intriguing and it represents everything about you and who you are. So tell me about yourself. You're at a networking event, cocktail in hand, and someone comes up to you and they say, tell me about yourself. Or you're at a job interview, and guess what that first question is going to be? Tell me about yourself. So what can we do to get ready to tell us about, tell that person about yourself? Well, all of that is going to come through in our elevator speech. So now we have kind of the framework for a personal brand. Use those words we want to describe our values and things like that. But now we need to kind of put it on paper and about how we're going to talk about ourselves. So the elevator speech is really a representation of you. It gives that quick snapshot of your skills, your abilities, your story to someone you can meet, and it can be used in really many different situations. So the elevator speech really boils down to who you are, the skills you have developed, and the values you bring to the table. And I like to have, kind of some different elevator speeches for some different scenarios. So you might have your elevator speech for when you're job hunting, or your elevator speech when you're out networking. And those all might revolve around different questions. So who are you? What do you do? Some of those basic things that you're always asked, you can have those ready to bring to the table and have the best elevator speech as possible that includes your story. So for your elevator speech, here's a couple tips of things to think about to do in it. One, keep it short. You don't want to just start rambling on and on. This is a problem I see a lot in interviews where someone will start with their name, then they start talking, and then it gets into what they had for breakfast that day, their love of horses, and it keeps going and going and going. So keep it short, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. Be interesting. Again, who lives, who dies, who tells your story? So what kind of story can you tell that might put you a step above other candidates if you're in an interview situation, or if you're networking, or all of those different scenarios? Show what you bring to the table. So you might want to talk about some of those skills you have and the values that you have. Know who you're talking to. So make sure that you are using the appropriate elevator speech to the appropriate person. You might have one that you've rehearsed for a job interview, and then you're at a networking event and you're like really selling yourself into this job scenario elevator speech. And lastly, practice. This is something you can do while you're driving to work, you're stuck in traffic, in front of the mirror on a Friday night, whenever you want to, just to have those words so it comes out naturally when you need to use your elevator speech. So some don't do's. Mumble or speak too fast. Hey, my name is Katie and this is what I do and this is and it's over and they have no idea what you've said. Ramble. We talked about this a little earlier. Keep it concise. I know when we get nervous, we do start going off into whatever topic we can. Don't use jargon. So again, kind of that zombie language, those things that you probably talk about during the workday, try to avoid that in your elevator speech. Speak in a monotone and I did this and I did that, and you're just going to bore the person to death. And then you have that balance between, I rehearsed this in my car, but hey, I didn't rehearse this in my car. So you want to have a natural conversation with people. A good tip is, let the conversation naturally breathe. And if you need to take a moment before you kind of launch into the elevator speech because maybe they frame the question a different way, that's okay too. So here's an example for you. This is an example of what not to do. So if someone asks me, what do you do? And I say, I work at Nationwide Children's Hospital, America's largest hospital. I'm a senior strategist on the consumer marketing team. My marketing and communication work focuses on community wellness matters. Some of my clients include Healthy Neighborhoods, Healthy Families, BC for Teens, and Care Connection. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but what in the world does your job mean? And do I really even care what your job means? And what was all of those programs you were talking about? What does that mean? Well, what do you really do? You just gave me a title, you gave me some clients, and you just kind of lost me. You didn't really tell me a story about what you do. So here's just a way, and this is something I'm working on all the time too, of how you can tell that story. So when you think about marketing for a hospital, you think about sick kids, but I work to keep kids out of the hospital. This includes our school-based health services where kids can go right down the hallway to get health care, a birth control program to equip teens with knowledge about reproductive health, and a healthy neighborhood initiative that involves safety, affordable housing, and education because we know health starts at home. And I help people find those services and make access easier. So it's just a different way to tell that story than saying my job title, here's my clients. Now you kind of know, and maybe this sets us up to talk more about it. Oh, that's interesting. Can you tell me about X, Y, and Z? And you already have a little bit of buy-in and background about it. So here's a couple other just short examples. If someone says, tell me about yourself, I'm a graphic designer. I create designs for the look and feel of our restaurant, and I love coming up with creative ways to get our restaurant's values and messages across so they are easy to understand. Or I run a bakery and I love meeting with customers to find out what they love. And then I translate that into my creations. And there's nothing better than hearing about how my creations made their day special. So instead of just saying, I'm a graphic designer, cricket, 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 go into what you love, because that passion is going to come across when you give that elevator speech. So any questions so far?
We currently don't have any questions, but I just wanted to remind everyone that you can send them in anytime using the questions pane.
So right now we're going to take a poll just as we get into some of the social media usage. So now we know what personal branding is. We know we need this elevator speech to get ready. So let's now talk about what we can do online. So we are going to have you take just a quick little poll to understand your social media usage.
Okay, so our poll question is, which social media platforms do you use regularly? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn? Okay, we have our polls coming in, our votes are coming. Okay, I'm going to close the poll. And we have 79% Facebook, 68% for Instagram, 50% for LinkedIn, and 21% for Twitter.
Wonderful. So we have a really diverse mixed audience here with the social media platforms. So now we're going to kind of go on our social media track here, and first kind of get into some social media etiquette. So oh, I'm sorry, we are not. I have one more slide. I took the wrong note. So first, sorry, before we get into that, just a few quick things. Your personal brand in person, just a couple things I wanted to touch on. First, resume and cover letter. Make sure that you are branding those in the same way, because those are an extension of your brand. They will make it just a little bit stronger, and they can step out in the crowd a little bit more. So you can just see examples of how I brand those two things together. If you have a portfolio, make sure that those also follow the same design that you do with your resume and cover letter. Email address, so we're kind of getting into that social aspect. Make sure your email address is, your name or something with your profession. I hate to even bring this up in this day and age, but last week I saw on LinkedIn someone applied with the email address sexychick69, and their resume didn't even get looked at. So people are still not paying attention to that. So important to pay attention to what your email address is. And this was a good tip I read last week about naming documents, so that when you upload your resume and cover letter, take an extra step and maybe rename them something that has to do with your profession or your strengths or skills. So you usually upload it resume.pdf. Well, maybe put your name in it and your years of experience, just something to set it up a little bit more. So now we're going to go into our social media portion. So when I think about social media and how we should behave online, my mantra is, what would Gretchen do? And Gretchen, you'll see here posed with a very creepy statue of I Love Lucy, is my mom. She is literally Mother Teresa on earth. The woman's never drank a drop of alcohol in her life. She's never said the word crap. She once told me, when someone cusses, it's like getting stabbed in the heart. So when I think about what to post on social media, I think, how's Gretchen going to react to this, and what is Gretchen going to do? My husband is a big offender of this, and we've had many conversations about him offending my mom on social media. So I want you to think, what would Gretchen do before you post on social media? And here are just a couple of examples of people who did not think about what Gretchen would do. So our first one at the top, driving drunk, classic, but to whoever's vehicle I hit, I am sorry. This was an actual Facebook post. So this person posted it on Facebook. A few hours later, the cops showed up at the door and arrested them. Again, what would Gretchen do? She wouldn't do that. Cisco just offered me a job. Now I have to weigh the utility of a fatty paycheck against the daily commute to San Jose and hating to work. Guess what? A few hours later, Cisco picked this up on their social media monitoring service, and they fired this person before they could even begin the job. And kind of going off on the right-hand side here, someone's tweeting back to someone, my job sucks too. I work at this place called Belaco on Newberry Street. The Belaco CEO tweets back, sorry, not anymore. And then another one at the bottom, this is just a cautionary tale that if you are running social media or maybe an organization or something you volunteer for, your business, make sure that you're on the right social media account when you post something. So I find it ironic that Detroit is known as Motor City and yet no one knows here how to bleeping drive. Tweeted by Chrysler Autos, not meant to be tweeted by them. Their social media person had the wrong account open. So all of these things are showing that extension of your personal brand. Just some things to think about. This is another good example. Justine Sacco was a director of communications for an organization. She was in London getting ready to go on a plane to Africa. She tweets, going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS, just kidding, I'm white. Justine goes up in the air on the plane and is going to Africa. In the meantime, this tweet is spreading like wildfire. People are sharing it, retweeting it. They are tweeting her company because they found out where she works that you should not be hot, you should not have this person employed by you. And then this hashtag started called when will Justine land, because she did not have access to her phone or any of this stuff while she was up in the air. As soon as she landed, the first text message that she had said, you are the #1 trending topic on Twitter. So this blew up. One little tweet, kind of destroyed her brand online and offline. So again, who remembers the hot Gainesville cops from just a few weeks ago? We all, fell in love. We loved reading the comments about them until, people started snooping on them, as they, as everyone does, and found out that, one of the gentlemen here went on his Facebook and he had anti-Semitic posts on there. So what did that do to his branding? He was branded as this hot cop, and now
turn the bright light out.
Totally different.
Just waste a lot of electricity.
So, just a quick word about friending your coworkers on social media. Proceed with caution. So, a couple of examples. This is a real Facebook post. I hate my job. My boss is a total pervy wanker, always making me to do stuff. And then you can see here that her boss actually commented on here. So again, make sure that you know who is on your friends list on social media. Just another example that happened. I know someone who was working on a piece in the workplace and they were editing it. They found something hysterical in it, and they actually posted it on their Facebook page about, they thought it was funny. They thought a couple lines in it were cheesy, whatever. Well, they forgot that they were friends with the person who wrote the document. So it caused all sorts of drama in the office. So remember who you have friended on social media. So let's talk about a few tips here. These are just things to think about before you post. So would anyone care about this besides
running a bath? That's not really wasting water.
These are posts probably about, what you're cooking for dinner. Will I offend anyone? And if so, does it matter? Again, for these posts where if you are angry about something and you want to take it out on social media, I would say give yourself a couple hours just to cool down, then rethink about what you're going to post. Is it appropriate for social media, or is it better communicated another way? I see this a lot, when husbands and wives are fighting on social media, they take it out on there when they should just talk to each other. How many times have I posted today? This is a big one, because with social media, you never know who you are going to need. People post jobs on there, they post opportunities. And if you are one of those people who posts 13 times a day, which I have someone on my feed, I've been doing an not so scientific research study, and you're going to come to me and you need a job reference or an opportunity, but I see your posts on social media, what does that say about you? Did I spell check? Again, all part of your personal brand. Will I be okay with anyone seeing this? This all goes back to what would Gretchen do? Is it going to make her feel like someone stabbed her in the heart? Am I using so many abbreviations that I'm starting to sound like a teenager? Again, this is all part of how you want to represent yourself personal branding wise. Is this thought out? So are you what they like to call vague booking, where you're kind of mad at someone, but you only put like real vague status update and you're kind of hoping that they see it's about them? And am I really just venting? So again, take some time, step away from the computer, the phone, and maybe come back to it later. So let's talk about Facebook first. So just some quick personal branding tips on Facebook. First, use a photo of yourself as the profile picture. Not your dog, not one of the bit emojis. You want to use you. And you want to try to avoid selfies if at all possible for your Facebook. Don't forget about the cover photo. So this is this big, longer photo that's at the top of your Facebook profile. Why I'm saying this is because I was interviewing for someone for a position once, and I went online to go check out their Facebook, and their cover photo was them doing a keg stand, which my siblings will tell you when we talk about this kind of thing, they call me the fun sucker, that I'm always trying to kill their fun. But if you can't just lock that photo down, and that's what an employer is going to see, just make sure you know what photo is up there. Also take a look at the groups you like and belong to, because they will be a reflection of you. Making sure that your about and education sections are correct and that you update them regularly. Again, don't overpost. And now we're going to kind of talk about locking it down. So how can we protect ourselves on Facebook? So before we get into that, just wanted to show you an example. This is a social media manager and author who does a really great job of branding herself across her social media. So you can see right above where it says Peg Fitzpatrick, that's just her profile picture. It's just her looking at the camera, and then she has this really nice cover photo where you can kind of get a glimpse into her personality. So she likes dogs, she's an author, and she's awesome, trying to get you to learn more about her and go to her website. So just a really great way to use that profile picture and cover photo. And again, it doesn't have to be this designed, but just to give you an example of what one person is doing. So let's talk about how you can stay safe and secure on social media, especially let's talk Facebook, because this is the one where I see people trip up the most. So in Facebook, if you were to go to the top of the navigation bar, you can click your privacy settings and security and log in. And what I want to point out under that is there is this section called where you're logged in. And I think this will surprise you. This will give you anywhere you are logged in. So if maybe you went on vacation in California like a year ago and you use the hotel computer in the lobby, you could potentially still kind of be logged in on Facebook on there. What you can do is off to the right-hand side, you can click that and hit end session, and it will end all of those active sessions. What I like to do with this is go in about every month and just close all of them and make myself re-log in, especially if I'm just auto logged in at different places. This is really good. A couple years ago, someone from West Virginia was trying to hack into my Facebook. I was able to go in here and hit end session and take care of that immediately. So this is a good thing just to check. You can also set up extra security. So you can have Facebook send you alerts if there is a device or browser you don't use. You can also have this two-factor thing where you will have a code sent to you, a text message if you want to, have it that you enter your password, and then you have that extra layer of security. The one thing that I would encourage everyone to go look at is under the privacy tab, and this is about who can see your stuff, as Facebook calls it. So who can see future posts, who can see your friends list, and then you can limit the audience for posts you've shared with friends of friends or the public. So you can turn on those different settings. The future posts one, you might just want to limit to friends. If you make it public, everyone is going to be able to see everything. So this is just a really good section to just take a look at from time to time. You can also have, settings about who can look you up by email address or phone number if you just want that extra layer of security. That is all up to you. And this is another important setting, is this timeline and tagging. This I would encourage everyone to turn on. So this allows you that if someone posts on your timeline, you have the authority to say it will appear on your timeline or it will not appear on your timeline. I encourage everyone to do this just because you don't know what your friends are going to do at any time, or if their accounts get hacked and they start spamming you, that would all show up on your timeline. You can see here, it says who can see things on my timeline. This is another section you can play with. So let's say that your boss or someone in a higher level of authority at work requests you on Facebook and you're not comfortable saying no to that. You can play with this setting right here and up the level on them so that they cannot see anything that's on your timeline. So the rest of your friends would be able to see your timeline, but if you initiate these custom settings, they would be limited in what they can see from you. So I would encourage you all just to go in, take a look at these settings, and make sure that they are up to date. So a lot of you had asked, about business tips with Facebook, and we could go on for hours and hours about Facebook and how to use that for your business or organization. So I just wanted to give a few quick tips tonight. Facebook is really about pay to play now. When I started out in social media, you could post and your messages would get to anyone who was following your group page or your fan page. Now they want advertising dollars out of you. So if you're really looking to grow your business, make sure to have some sort of paid media strategy with Facebook ads. Facebook ads are relatively cheap. You can also really target your audience by zip code, by interests. You can even, choose to target people who have kids in high school or kids of a certain age. So take a look at those settings, but no, if you are going to use Facebook to grow your business, make sure that you have some paid advertising around it. Another business tip for Facebook is, tell your story through your content. So it can be a real nice mix of personal stories with business stories, and you really want to add some value to your followers instead of just trying to sell them all the time, because you want to build that authentic relationship with them. So if you own a gym, for example, you could post all the time, spinnings at 5:30 tonight, buy a gym membership and try to sell, or you can kind of have them meet your personal trainers, meet your group fitness instructors. If you have kind of a workout of the day, you could post it on there. You could teach them the correct way to do squats. So kind of give them that value add content that they will hopefully share with all of their friends on Facebook. And then kind of in a backwards way, you are selling your product, you are making yourself a thought leader, you are enhancing the branding of your business and organization. So kind of before we go into our next social media platform, any questions on Facebook? Okay, we will power on here. So Twitter,
Katie?
Oh, sorry.
It's
yes.
Okay. We actually do have a question. So Elisa is asking if you could actually go back and explain how to get into that security section again.
Sure. So at the top of your Facebook page, it'll have your name, It'll have all sorts of different tabs at the top, like account, things like that. Drop down on that and you'll see one for security settings. So it's at the top on a desktop, and that's how I would go in and look at it, because on a mobile, this is really hard to see. So there's going to be the tiny profile picture of you, and then there's like an arrow. Click on that and find security or privacy. It's under one of those settings there. And then you can see here I've kind of highlighted the security and login, where you can find that where you've logged in, privacy, where you can find who can see my stuff, and then timeline and tagging, which you can set up to make sure that people have, you have the authority to make sure things aren't showing up that you don't want them to. But it's all at the top right-hand corner of your Facebook profile. Very, very top of it.
Great. We actually have another question if you're willing to take it now.
Sure.
So Rachel's asked, at what point should we start removing experiences from your resume? For example, should she remove experiences from college after she searches for her second post-college job?
So that's a really good question. Someone just asked me this yesterday. We were talking about it. If it adds something to the position you're applying for, so let's say you're applying for a position that's asking for 5 to 7 years experience, and you're kind of at the 5-year experience with your post-college career opportunities, I might keep them on there just to show, hey, I was doing all of this in college. I think that I stayed at my first job 6 years, so I did keep the internship before there just to show, and it was a different setting, so I really wanted to show that I had different experiences in agency setting along with an association setting. So I would say, just depending on the amount of years they want and then the skill set they're looking for, if there was something at that internship that you kind of didn't use in that job or that helps complement that new position, I would keep it on there. I think I finally removed all of my college stuff when I did get my second job, because I had used those skills in the first job and then in the second job as well.
Great, thank you. Those are all the questions we have right now.
Thanks. So Twitter, I know that one, when we talked about what social media you're on, that was one of our least ranked ones. So just a quick overview of Twitter. Twitter's kind of like a micro blogging site. You have just a few characters to get your message out on Twitter. So it's not one platform that you can ramble on and on about. I love to use Twitter for information gathering. This is where I get a lot of my professional information that kind of helps me grow in my career. So when we're thinking about Twitter, again, consistency with that profile picture, and then your handle on Twitter should be related to your name, your business, or your profession. Again, thinking about what we talked about with the email address earlier, making sure that people understand what it is and what you do. So here is that Peg Fitzpatrick again. This is what her Twitter branding looks like. And again, you can see profile picture her. It's very similar to Facebook. So again, you get that flavor of who she is. You can also see right before her, underneath her handle, which is Peg Fitzpatrick, her name, there's this little bio section here. And we're going to talk about that in a second. This is where you can use some of those personal branding words that describe who you are and what you do. But again, you are limited in characters, so it is really hard, and it might take a couple tries to do that. So when thinking about that bio, here's some great tips from Buffer, which is a social media monitoring service. I really like these 7 things that they say you can include in your Twitter bio. And again, you have 160 characters, so you've got to keep it short and sweet. So a professional description, I would say for sure put that in there. Something exciting, it's targeted, so maybe it really does talk about what your career is. Don't be afraid to put an accomplishment in there. I know that there is a balance, so think about what that could be. You might also want to include a hobby just to give you that personal touch, or that could be that one interesting fact or feature that's intriguing about yourself. And you also want to link on Twitter, maybe put your LinkedIn profile in there too, or your blog if you have one, just so people can cross-reference you and find out more about you on different social channels. Again, you don't have to put all of these things on here, but these are just some things to get your your mind thinking about what you want to put in a Twitter bio because it is so hard. You only have so many characters. So here's a couple examples I pulled. This one, Aaron Lee, I really loved. He put his job in there, but then he says, trying to perfect the art of cappuccino, introvert with awesome hair. I mean, if that doesn't make me want to read his Twitter feed, what does? And he's got a link to his Instagram and his email. Richard Branson is the CEO at Virgin, and instead of just putting that, I love this bio. I mean, it just sells it. Tie-loathing adventure, philanthropist, and troublemaker. So kind of step outside the box about how you can talk about yourself or talk about some of the values or skills you bring to the table. And then Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who is an actor, his is kind of more of a call to action of trying to bring people together. So he's talking about his company because that is his main objective. He knows he's going to get followers. He doesn't have to sell people on it. But he's talking about, he's looking for all these people and, hey, you want to work with us? So giving that call to action on there. So just a few examples for you. So some personal branding advice on Twitter, just follow those people who have the same interests and career goals as you. So I really like to follow a lot of PR professionals from all across the United States who are publishing or who are sharing content. It just really helps me to stay current and know what's going on in the profession. I would also warn with hashtags, which are those, the number symbol, in case you don't know, make sure you're using those appropriately. So before you send something out with a hashtag, maybe check it and make sure it's not a hashtag about something else that you didn't know about. When you are posting on Twitter, make sure to mix up the content. So it doesn't have to be business all the time. It can be a mix of business and personal because, again, you want to have people have that total picture of you. And then when people write back to you, make sure that you are responding back to them in a timely manner. So for Twitter, quick business tip, you can set up searches to find people who are talking about keywords of things that interest you, and then you can engage with them. So again, going back to our gym scenario, if you do fitness Columbus near Columbus, Ohio, you will have a feed of showing up of people who are talking about that, and maybe you engage with them and say, start the conversation with them. I know a lot of people find that creepy, but that is what businesses are doing all the time. So it's just one thing to think about on how to best use Twitter. Instagram is a social media platform where you post pictures. So you can also do short Instagram stories to kind of tell a story about something going on in your life or with your business. So just some quick tips with Instagram. Again, that profile picture, consistency, choosing our handle wisely, the same thing I've kind of hit on with the others. Checking our hashtags again, and just really, be yourself. Showcase those things that are meaningful to you, the content that really makes you you, and tell a story with your photos. So if you take a story of a beautiful sunset, is there some sort of picture to go along with it? Or if you're taking a photo of, maybe a piece you had published, what's the story that goes with it? And again, don't post anything you don't want grandma to see or my mother to see. Just things to keep in mind there. So taking a quick look again about some personal branding bios on Instagram. Here's Peg again, and you can see very similar. This is what she was selling with her words on Facebook. This is how her Twitter bio was reading, and she's sending people to her blog. Josh Groban, one of my favorite singers, when he really started in the business before personal branding, before social media, everyone thought he was real serious and, no humor, and he's really used his social media to get across his brand that he's, kind of lighthearted and funny, and you can just tell this right here by his bio on Instagram. So use that bio on Instagram too. You could make it the same thing as your Twitter bio, and again, linking to another social media platform, your LinkedIn or your blog. So quick business tip for Instagram, they also do paid targeted advertising, shows up right into your feed. And another thing I'll say is that if you have content from a blog or website, showcase it through a video or a photo. You could also just use words. Maybe you have it designed really nicely and the words describe what that content is, and include a link to it. So kind of cross-promote all those content pieces across different social channels. So even if it is a website article, you can do something with a photo graphic that lets people know what it is in case they have an interest to click on it. So Snapchat, I'm really not going to talk about much. I am not on Snapchat. I tried it. It wasn't for me. And we'll talk about this later about what social media should I be on. But I just want to warn you, what you snap can stay around forever. Last week, there was a Navy hospital employee who was fired, who was Snapchatting videos and photos in, I think it was the newborn delivery room. And he was flipping off babies, saying how I currently feel about mini Satans, and people were screenshotting the Snapchats he was sending and turned them into people. So again, just because they advertise that it will disappear, nothing ever disappears on the internet. So again, one of those things to think about. So before I get into LinkedIn real quick, any questions on any of those social media platforms?
Yeah, we have a question regarding hashtags, and it's kind of a two-part question. So one part is, how do you start your own hashtag? And the second part is, do you even want to start one, or do you want to kind of tag on to one that's already got some followers and some momentum?
So I would say it depends on your strategy. First, there is a website. You can Google and see what hashtags are being used. So if you do want to start a brand new hashtag, you can go in and look and make sure no one else is using it. You can also pay to buy a hashtag, and I know that sounds very weird. I think it starts minimum at $500, and there are paid advertising that goes out around that hashtag to kind of help you build momentum. You can also use, kind of grasp onto others' hashtags if you're seeing they have success with them. So one of the things that we're working on at the hospital right now is this Start the Convo campaign. We're talking about mental and behavioral health. There are other people in the space using that hashtag, but they are using it in an appropriate manner. So they are using it to talk about important issues. So we're all just kind of using this hashtag together in that space, because not one person's really owning it. There's not one that has, when Charlie Sheen said winning years ago and everyone was using that and you knew it was about Charlie Sheen, it's not like one person owned that hashtag. So I would just take a look at your content strategy. Starting a hashtag is very hard, and there's no real formula as how do you get something to go viral. I know one of the things I was always charged with in one of the jobs is make this video go viral. Well, there's no real formula to it, because if there was, wouldn't we all be making videos go viral? So take a look at that hashtag purchasing, and then seeing what hashtags exist out there. But I don't think it hurts to kind of tag onto someone else's hashtag, especially if the features are similar, the content's similar.
Great, thank you. And the follow-up to that is, do you know the name of the website that you can check for the hashtags being used?
I can email that after. I'll put my email address up. I think I know what it is, but I don't want to give the wrong one and send you out into a weird spam site. So I can check on that for you. I'll put my email address up at the end, and please feel free to shoot me an email.
Great, that's all the questions that we have for right now.
Okay, so kind of the last channel we're going to look at quickly is LinkedIn. Again, with LinkedIn, using that professional headshot, and if there is one place that you want to use a professional headshot, it is LinkedIn. So the other ones, I will give you a pass on if you don't want to display a personal professional headshot, but LinkedIn, absolutely, you need a professional headshot on here. And then on LinkedIn, you also have the option to customize the URL. So what that means is that the web address would be linkedin.com/Katie Thomas or whatever your name is. So take advantage of that too, because that's great for search engine optimization, so how people find you in Google. So for your LinkedIn photo, here's just some really great tips that we try to have all people follow, that I've always tried to have people follow in the different organizations that I've worked at. So again, trying to avoid selfieing and full body shots, and then really filtering the photos so no one can even understand who you are. Dress for your role, make eye contact. They just say that there's such an increase in visibility of your profile when you make eye contact in your photo. So these are just a couple simple do's and don'ts. And why do we even care so much about the photo on LinkedIn? Well, studies have shown that photos get 7 times more the click-through rate than a regular, if a person doesn't have a photo. So people are going to be drawn more to your profile. There is a headline option in LinkedIn, and a lot of people will put in this headline their job title. But what you want to do is try to take advantage of this headline, and I think this is really difficult to do and something that I struggle with too. So you kind of want to have it to be your so what? What's something that's going to suck people into your profile and get them interested besides your job title? So here's a couple of examples. Some are very bold. I'm not sure if I could pull it off, but I wanted to throw them out there. So he advertises himself as the coolest guy in Nashville. Google it to see yourself, and by golly, everyone's Googling it. He works in marketing and advertising. He's done some neat campaigns. This guy is just giving you here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to increase your sales with precision targeting. Great. I know what he's going to do. Now I'm going to dig deep and learn more about his bio and experience. This one is the wordsmith with proven ability to translate business objectives. This one kind of gets a little into that zombie branding, but just some things to think about. Like, I love the word wordsmith. So maybe it's wordsmith who takes business speak and makes it into something everyone can understand. So think about how you can translate that into a headline that people can understand. So what I like about LinkedIn is it really paints this nice picture of you. You can use your resume as the basis, put everything from your resume on LinkedIn and have those match. But LinkedIn also gives you a place to have this summary section where you can put a personal story. You can tell how that relates to your role, what you do, and then give information about how to get in touch with you. So it lets you talk a little bit longer than what that Twitter bio lets you, what your Instagram bio lets you. It is really the place to tell your story. These I loved. You can see here, Harriet the Spy was my Bible when I was a little girl. This sucked me in immediately. And then she talks about how today she still spies on people, but they give them permission. So just a really great way of taking a childhood memory and then rolling it into what they do today. You can see that she has email address. She's also touting her company and has specialties. This one I like too, just because it starts out, no one is good as at everything, which is a bold statement. And who would think that someone would be saying that, on LinkedIn? So this is how she helps business people. All of the offerings she has. If you need help, if I can't be a service, I may know of others, and listing all the specialties as well. So this is something to definitely take advantage of, and just don't have it be that first person, just your resume listing here. Tell a story about who you are, what makes you get out of bed in the morning. So a couple other tips. Make sure back in that story section, the summary, to put keywords in it. So make sure, if you are a graphic designer, that does appear somewhere. You always want to make sure your LinkedIn profile is updated with your current position and skills. And then again, on the flip side, don't exaggerate the skills and abilities, because 77% of employers are looking at your social media before they even interview you. So if they see something on here on LinkedIn and it's maybe out of this world, they are going to ask you about it. LinkedIn also lets you recommend people or get recommendations. I'm not sure how much that those sway someone, but I think it's that extra step you take to make your profile more complete. So you can actually request someone to recommend you, or why don't you start out by recommending people you've worked with before. Just write a couple nice lines about how they contributed to your organization. Another thing you do on LinkedIn to kind of build your networking base is to comment on others' posts. So when people post things, or they're celebrating a job anniversary, or they've won an award, they're sharing content, make sure to take a look at it and just comment on it and build those relationships with people. And another thing you can do on LinkedIn is join groups of interest. So a lot of agencies have groups and companies, and it just gives you that insider feel of what's going on and just connects you with them, makes you stronger overall on LinkedIn with your profile. So LinkedIn is a really great place to show yourself as a thought leader. So here is where I would take advantage that, if you write content or you have content published, showcase it on LinkedIn. Or if, there's something going on in the news or in your industry that you want to comment on, this is the place to do it. Write a couple lines. LinkedIn allows you to publish longer pieces on here, so it doesn't have to be as short and sweet as Twitter. So use LinkedIn to its full advantage to really position yourself as someone who knows about X, Y, and Z, whatever that might be. This is good for your business as well. So I have a few final thoughts and then we'll get into questions. First, someone said, what social media do I have to be on? And I'm going to tell you, you don't have to be on every platform. Be on the ones that work best for you, that you have time for. Someone had asked, do I need a separate like real personal account and then like a business account? I will tell you, and people who've tried to do that before, it just takes up so much time that something lapses, they forget about it. I would just say make your profiles the best they can be, the strongest they can be. Use security settings if you have to. So use the platforms you are comfortable with. Don't feel like you have to be everywhere. Same thing for businesses too. You see a lot of small businesses try to be on everything and can't maintain them. So just my advice there. Also, make sure, for your businesses, keep websites and blogs updated regularly. Now, especially if we're looking into personal branding, a blog can really serve as the hub of your personal brand, but you need to make sure that it is updated regularly. So maybe you're sharing thought leadership on what's going on in the industry, tips for X, Y, and Z. What you can do with those blog pieces is showcase it on all of your social media channels. So going back to our gym example, let's say that I have the 10 best burpees you can do. So let's say that I write that blog post up, I share it on LinkedIn, I take a picture of someone doing a burpee, I tease it out on Instagram, I have a short teaser, 10 best ways to do burpees on Twitter, I also share it on my Facebook page, then I share it from my personal account. There is all sorts of ways you can repurpose that content. And then maybe later on you pull out the number 5 burpee and you repurpose that content in all of those channels. So really think about keeping those updated. And a blog is a great way to extend your personal brand, but again, just make sure you have the time for it. So, already kind of touched on this, repurpose. You might have to rewrite a little bit, but it'll just let you have that message, that synergy across all of those channels. They say now, it used to be it took 7 messages for someone to get what you're talking about, and now because our attention spans are now 3 seconds long, it might take up to 22, I think, 22 times before someone remembers your message. So repurpose that content across social media. So any final questions?
We don't currently have any questions. No.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining me tonight. This is my email address. Please feel free to contact me with questions, or you want to talk resumes. I don't know why, but I do like looking at resumes. You want to talk LinkedIn or just in general about anything, please feel free to contact me, and thank you all for joining me tonight.
Thank you to our presenter, Katie, for leading the session, and thank you for your participation tonight. If you have any further questions about tonight's topic, please email Katie directly. Thank you to everyone, and have a great night.